The stars shone brightly in the vast emptiness of space, their light flickering like tiny candles against the endless dark. Outpost Delta 7 was a small human settlement clinging to the edge of an uncharted galaxy. It wasn't much, just a cluster of domes, solar panels, and mining equipment. But it represented humanity's determination to explore and survive. Among the colonists were Alex Carter, a young engineer with a knack for fixing anything, and Clara Bennett, a biologist who spent most of her days studying strange alien plants that grew nearby. One quiet evening, as Alex was checking the outpost's sensors, something unusual caught his attention. A faint energy signal pulsed from the direction of a nearby asteroid field. At first, he thought it might be interference or a glitch, but the readings were too consistent. Curious, he decided to investigate. Clara joined him, eager to stretch her legs after hours cooped up inside the lab. They suited up and climbed into a small shuttle, its engines humming softly as they approached the asteroids. The field was a chaotic jumble of rocks floating silently in the void. Using the shuttle scanners, Alex pinpointed the source of the signal, a large metallic object partially buried beneath layers of debris. As they got closer, the shape became clearer. It was a ship, but not one made by human hands. "This doesn't look friendly," Clara said, her voice tinged with both excitement and unease. Alex nodded. "Let's check it out." Carefully maneuvering the shuttle, they docked with the mysterious vessel. Its surface was smooth and cold, covered in intricate patterns that seemed almost alive under the dim lights of their suits. Inside, the air was stale, and the silence felt heavy. There were no signs of life. No crew, no movement, but the ship was far from empty. Strange devices lined the walls, glowing faintly with colors neither Alex nor Clara had ever seen before. As they explored deeper, they found what appeared to be a control room. Symbols etched into the panel suggested some kind of communication system, though neither of them could decipher it. Then, Clara noticed something chilling, a series of images projected onto a screen. They showed planets being destroyed, cities reduced to rubble, and people fleeing in terror. In each scene, towering insect-like creatures loomed over the chaos, their claws dripping with destruction. "Whoever built this ship, they're dangerous," Clara whispered, her voice trembling slightly. Alex frowned, his mind racing. "We need to tell Commander Hayes about this." But as they turned to leave, a low hum filled the air. The ship seemed to come alive around them, lights flashing and machinery whirring. Panicked, Alex and Clara hurried back to the shuttle. Just as they sealed the hatch behind them, the alien ship suddenly powered down, plunging the area back into silence. Back at the outpost, they reported everything to Commander Ryan Hayes, a stern but fair leader who listened intently. His expression grew grim as they described the ship and the ominous images they'd seen. "If those things are out there, we need to prepare," Hayes said finally. "Because if they find us, we'll have to fight." Little did they know, the fight would come sooner than expected. Unbeknownst to the colonists, their discovery had already been noticed, and the owners of the derelict ship weren't far away. The next morning, the mood at Outpost Delta 7 was tense. News of Alex and Clara's discovery had spread quickly among the colonists, and whispers of danger filled the air. Commander Ryan Hayes called a meeting in the main dome, where everyone gathered around a large table covered with maps and schematics. The room buzzed with nervous energy as people exchanged worried glances. "We don't know who or what built that ship," Hayes began, his voice steady but firm. "But we do know one thing: it wasn't friendly. Those images Clara found suggest these aliens are hostile. If they're still out there, we need to be ready." Alex raised his hand hesitantly. "What if they come here? We're not exactly equipped for a fight." Hayes nodded. "That's why we're going to prepare. We'll fortify the outpost, set up defenses, and make sure every single person knows how to handle themselves. This isn't just about survival. It's about showing whoever or whatever finds us that humans aren't easy prey." As the meeting ended, the colonists sprang into action. Some worked on reinforcing the domes, welding extra metal plates over weak spots. Others dug trenches around the perimeter and rigged them with explosives made from mining materials. Even the children pitched in, carrying supplies and helping with smaller tasks. Everyone understood the stakes. Failure meant losing everything. A few days later, their preparations were put to the test. Early one morning, the outpost's sensors picked up movement near the edge of the asteroid field. At first, it seemed like nothing more than debris drifting closer, but then the readings sharpened. Multiple ships, large, sleek, and menacing, emerged from behind the rocks. They moved silently, their surfaces reflecting the light of a distant star. "Contact!" shouted Megan Doyle, the outpost's chief scientist, who was monitoring the sensors. "They're heading straight for us." Hayes immediately ordered everyone to take their positions. Alex rushed to the communications array, trying to send out a distress signal, while Clara helped distribute weapons to those stationed at the outer defenses. The colonists braced themselves, hearts pounding as the alien ships drew nearer. When the vessels finally stopped just outside the outpost's range, a smaller craft detached from the fleet and descended toward the surface. It landed smoothly, kicking up clouds of dust. A figure stepped out, a tall, insectoid creature with shimmering exoskeleton armor and multifaceted eyes that glinted menacingly. Behind it, several others followed, each carrying staff-like devices that crackled with energy. One of the creatures approached the outpost's main gate. Through a translator device hastily patched together by Alex, its voice echoed coldly. "I am Zixer, ambassador of the Silith Empire. You occupy territory claimed by my people. Surrender now, and your lives may be spared." Hayes stepped forward, his jaw clenched. "We're not leaving. This is our home, and we'll defend it." Zixer tilted its head, almost amused. "Your defiance is quaint, but futile. You are weak, fragile. My kind has conquered countless worlds far greater than yours. Your resistance will only delay the inevitable." Without waiting for a response, Zixer signaled to its companions. The group returned to their ship, which ascended back into orbit. Moments later, the larger fleet unleashed a barrage of energy blasts, targeting one of the colony's outer settlements. The attack was swift and brutal, reducing buildings to rubble and sending shockwaves through the ground. But the humans didn't crumble. Using mining drills mounted on turrets, the defenders fired back, striking one of the enemy ships. Others hurled makeshift grenades crafted from explosive compounds used in excavation work. Though outnumbered and outgunned, their determination turned the tide. After a fierce exchange, the Silith withdrew, clearly surprised by the ferocity of the human resistance. Later that night, as the survivors regrouped, Hayes addressed the shaken but resolute colonists. "They thought we'd roll over and die. But we showed them something today, something they weren't expecting. We showed them that humans don't give up. Not now. Not ever." Unbeknownst to the humans, however, this was only the beginning. High above, aboard the Silith flagship, Zixer stared at the damaged hull of one of its ships. Its mandibles clicked angrily. "These humans, they are more trouble than anticipated. But no matter. Their strength is irrelevant. They will fall. All of them." The victory at the outer settlement was small but significant. For the first time, the colonists of Outpost Delta 7 felt a spark of hope. They had faced the Silith, a race that claimed to be unstoppable. And they had fought back. The damaged enemy ship and the withdrawal of their forces proved that humans could hold their ground, even against overwhelming odds. But the celebration was short-lived. Everyone knew that Silith wouldn't give up so easily. Commander Ryan Hayes gathered his team in the main dome once again. Alex Carter, Clara Bennett, and Dr. Megan Doyle sat around the table, their faces showing a mix of exhaustion and determination. Hayes spread out a map of the outpost and its surroundings. "They'll be back," he said bluntly. "And next time, they won't underestimate us." Alex leaned forward, his hands resting on the table. We got lucky last time. If they come with more ships or better weapons, we might not stand a chance. Clara nodded. But we've got something they don't, an understanding of this place. We know the terrain, the resources, and how to adapt. That's our edge. Hayes smiled faintly. Exactly. Adaptation is what we do best. So let's use it. Megan, you and Alex focus on improving our defenses. See if you can modify those alien weapons we salvaged from the derelict ship. Clara, keep studying anything unusual about the Silith tech. They might have weaknesses we can exploit. As the meeting broke up, the colonists returned to their tasks with renewed energy. Alex and Megan worked tirelessly in the lab, dismantling pieces of alien equipment and experimenting with new ways to repurpose them. Clara spent hours reviewing the images she had seen on the derelict ship, searching for patterns or clues about the Silith's behavior. Meanwhile, the rest of the colony prepared for another attack, fortifying walls, digging trenches, and stockpiling supplies. Days passed without any sign of the Silith, but the tension never eased. Every shadow seemed darker, every sound louder. Then, late one night, the sensors lit up again. This time, the fleet was larger, dozens of ships descending like predators circling their prey. Zixer's voice crackled over the comms, colder and angrier than before. You have defied the Silith Empire once too often. Prepare to face annihilation. The colonists scrambled to their positions, hearts pounding. But instead of launching a direct assault, the Silith began deploying drones, small, insect-like machines that swarmed the outpost. The drones emitted high-pitched screeches that disoriented anyone nearby and released bursts of energy that fried electronics. Panic spread as systems failed and communications went down. Stick together, Hayes shouted over the chaos. Use whatever you've got. The humans fought back with everything they had. Farmers wield Urgba 0, 0, 0, 0, edge shovels and axes, turning farming tools into makeshift weapons. Engineers rigged broken machinery to create EMP devices that temporarily disabled the drones. Even children threw rocks and debris, doing whatever they could to help. Slowly but surely, the tide began to turn. In the heat of the battle, Alex noticed something strange. The drones seemed to avoid certain areas where the colonists had set up reflective surfaces, mirrors, polished metal sheets, anything shiny. He quickly relayed the observation to Clara, who realized the drones relied on visual targeting. Together, they instructed everyone to use reflective materials to confuse the machines. The strategy worked. The drones faltered, their movements becoming erratic as they struggled to lock onto targets. Emboldened, the humans pressed their advantage, smashing the remaining drones with whatever they could find. Within minutes, the swarm was neutralized. High above, aboard the flagship, Zixer watched the scene unfold with growing frustration. These humans, they are resourceful pests. No matter what we throw at them, they adapt. One of its subordinates clicked nervously. Perhaps we should retreat and reassess, Ambassador. Zixer hesitated, its mandibles twitching. Finally, it gave the order to withdraw. As the fleet disappeared into the void, the colonists erupted into cheers. They had survived another attack, but they all knew the war was far from over. That night, as the outpost settled into an uneasy calm, Hayes addressed the weary but triumphant group. Today showed us something important. It's not just about strength or technology. It's about heart. We're still here because we refuse to quit, and no matter what comes next, we'll keep fighting. Because that's what humans do. Unbeknownst to them, Zixer wasn't done. Back on the flagship, the Ambassador plotted its next move, determined to crush the stubborn humans once and for all. But deep down, a seed of doubt had taken root. Could these fragile creatures really pose a threat to the mighty Silith Empire? Only time would tell. The outpost was quiet after the second attack, but it wasn't the kind of quiet that brought peace. It was heavy, like the calm before a storm. Everyone knew that Silith would return. And next time, they might bring even more firepower. The colonists worked tirelessly to prepare, their movements quick and deliberate. They had learned from the previous battles, and now they were determined to use every advantage they could find. Alex Carter spent long hours in the lab with Dr. Megan Doyle, trying to make sense of the alien tech they had salvaged. The pieces were strange, unlike anything humans had ever seen, but Alex's engineering skills and Megan's scientific knowledge slowly began to unlock their secrets. One device, in particular, caught their attention. It looked like a weapon, sleek and compact, with glowing blue lines running along its surface. When Alex pressed a button on its side, a burst of energy shot out, leaving a scorch mark on the wall. "This could be useful," Megan said, her eyes wide with excitement. "If we can figure out how to mass-produce these, we'll have a real edge." Clara Bennett, meanwhile, focused on studying the Silith drones they had destroyed during the last battle. She carefully examined their components, looking for weaknesses. After days of analysis, she discovered something important. The drones relied on a central hub to coordinate their movements. If the humans could destroy or disable the hub during an attack, they could cripple the entire swarm. Commander Ryan Hayes listened intently as Alex and Clara presented their findings. His face remained serious, but there was a flicker of hope in his eyes. "Good work," he said. "Now let's put this knowledge to use. We need to hit the Silith where it hurts, before they hit us again." With renewed purpose, the colonists began building new defenses, using the alien weapon as a template. Alex and Megan modified mining tools into handheld energy rifles. These weapons weren't as powerful as the original, but they were enough to give the humans a fighting chance. At the same time, Clara helped design traps to neutralize the drone hubs. Reflective surfaces were combined with EMP devices to create zones that would confuse and disable the machines. As the days passed, the colony grew stronger. Pilots like Jake Monroe and Samantha Sam Riley trained hard, flying practice missions in the small fleet of shuttles. They practiced evasive maneuvers and coordinated attacks, knowing they would play a crucial role if the Silith returned. Back on the ground, farmers and engineers worked together to fortify the outpost, turning it into a maze of trenches, barriers, and hidden explosives. Despite the progress, tensions ran high. Clara often found herself lying awake at night, staring at the ceiling. She couldn't shake the feeling that humanity was crossing a dangerous line. Wasn't violence just perpetuating the cycle? What if they became too much like the Silith, cold, ruthless, and destructive? She shared her concerns with Alex, who listened patiently, but offered no easy answers. "We're not doing this because we want to hurt them," Alex said gently. "We're doing it because we want to live." "There's a difference." Clara nodded, though she wasn't entirely convinced. Still, she pushed aside her doubts and focused on helping the colony. Survival came first. Everything else could wait. One evening, as the sun set over the barren landscape, Hayes called another meeting. Standing in front of the group, he spoke with quiet determination. "We've come a long way since the first attack. We've learned, adapted, and grown stronger. But the Silith aren't going to stop until we make them stop. So here's the plan. We take the fight to them." The room fell silent as Hayes outlined his strategy. Instead of waiting for the Silith to strike, the humans would launch a surprise attack on their fleet. Using the shuttles, they would target key ships and disrupt their operations. It was risky, but it might buy the colony enough time to develop better weapons and defenses. The plan was risky, but the humans had no choice. They couldn't wait for the Silith to strike again. They had to act first. Under the cover of darkness, Commander Ryan Hayes and his team prepared for their daring mission. The shuttles were loaded with explosives and modified energy rifles, while pilots Jake Monroe and Samantha Sam Riley reviewed their flight paths one last time. Everyone knew this could be their only chance to weaken the Silith fleet. Alex Carter joined the briefing, clutching a handheld device he had been working on with Dr. Megan Doyle. "This is a tracker," he explained. If we can plant it on one of their ships, we'll be able to monitor their movements. It might give us an edge in future battles." Hayes nodded approvingly. "Good work. Now let's make sure we get it done." As the shuttles launched into the cold void of space, the colonists left behind watched anxiously from the outpost. Clara Bennett stood near the main dome, her hands gripping the railing tightly. She wanted to believe in the mission, but fear gnawed at her. What if something went wrong? What if they lost people they cared about? In space, the shuttles moved silently, sticking close to the shadows of nearby asteroids. The Tsilith fleet loomed ahead, its massive ships glowing faintly against the blackness. Jake and Sam split up, each leading a group to target different parts of the enemy formation. Their goal was simple: cause as much damage as possible without getting caught. Jake's team approached a large supply ship, its hull bristling with weapons and cargo pods. "Stay low and move fast," Jake whispered over the comms. His shuttle glided closer, dodging patrols until they reached their drop-off point. Alex, who had volunteered to join the mission, jumped out with a small team, carrying the tracker and a pack of explosives. They worked quickly, attaching the devices to the ship's outer hull before retreating. Meanwhile, Sam's team targeted a smaller vessel that seemed to serve as a command relay. Using the modified rifles, they fired bursts of energy at key points, disabling engines and communication arrays. The Tsilith responded swiftly, sending drones to investigate the intruders. But the humans were ready. Reflective surfaces and EMP traps scattered throughout the area confused the machines, giving the shuttles enough time to escape. Back aboard the flagship, Zixer watched the chaos unfold with growing anger. "These humans are pests," it hissed, its mandibles clicking furiously. "They dare attack us directly." "They're more resourceful than anticipated," one of its subordinates admitted cautiously. "Perhaps we should reconsider our strategy." "No," Zixer snapped. "We will crush them. Prepare the invasion force. We strike at dawn." By the time the shuttles returned to the outpost, the humans were exhausted but triumphant. They had succeeded in planting the tracker and causing significant damage to the Tsilith fleet. Cheers erupted as the pilots landed, and Hayes greeted them with a rare smile. "You did good," he said. "Now let's see what we can learn from that tracker." But the celebration was short-lived. As the sun rose over the barren landscape, the sensors detected movement in orbit. The Tsilith fleet was regrouping, and this time, they weren't holding back. Dozens of ships descended toward the planet, their weapons charging for a full-scale assault. Clara felt a chill run down her spine as she stared at the readings. "They're coming for us," she whispered. Hayes gathered everyone once again, his voice steady despite the looming threat. "This is it," he said. "They think they've got us cornered, but they're wrong. We've proven time and again that we won't go down without a fight. Today, we show them what humanity is made of." The colonists sprang into action, manning their positions with grim determination. Farmers armed themselves with tools turned into weapons, engineers activated hidden traps, and pilots prepared for another round of dogfights. Even those too young to fight helped by carrying supplies or tending to the wounded. As the Tsilith forces closed in, the humans stood ready. They knew the odds were against them, but they also knew something else. They were stronger together. Each person, no matter how small their role, contributed to the colony's survival, and in that unity lay their true power. High above, Zixer surveyed the scene with narrowed eyes. "This ends now," it declared. "Destroy them all." The battle began with a deafening roar, energy blasts lighting up the sky. But even as the humans fought for their lives, a spark of defiance burned within them. They had faced impossible odds before, and they had won. Today would be no different. The battle raged on with a ferocity that shook the very ground beneath the outpost. Energy blasts tore through the air, lighting up the dark sky like jagged bolts of lightning. The Tsilith ships descended in waves, their weapons pounding the colony's defenses. The humans fought back fiercely, using every trick they had learned from previous encounters. Explosions erupted across the landscape, sending clouds of dust and debris spiraling into the air. Alex Carter crouched behind a makeshift barricade, clutching one of the modified energy rifles. His heart pounded as he fired at the approaching enemy drones, each shot striking true thanks to Megan Doyle's careful modifications. Nearby, Clara Bennett worked tirelessly to keep the EMP traps operational, her hands trembling but determined. She knew how crucial these devices were. If they failed, the swarm of drones would overwhelm them. Commander Ryan Hayes moved between the defenders, shouting orders and boosting morale. "Hold your positions," he yelled over the chaos. "We've faced worse than this. Stay strong." Despite their efforts, the humans were struggling. The Xylith forces were relentless, their numbers seemingly endless. Just when it seemed like the colony might be overrun, Jake Monroe and Sam Riley swooped in with their shuttles, strafing the enemy lines and drawing fire away from the ground troops. Their bold maneuvers gave the colonists a brief reprieve, but everyone knew it wouldn't last long. Back at the lab, Dr. Megan Doyle monitored the tracker Alex had planted during the raid. Her eyes widened as she analyzed the data streaming in. "There's something here," she muttered to herself, scrolling through lines of alien code. Suddenly, it clicked. Hidden within the information was a pattern, a flaw in the Xylith armor plating that made it vulnerable to high-frequency vibrations. Megan rushed to find Alex, pulling him aside amidst the chaos. "I think I found a weakness," she said breathlessly. "Their armor can't handle certain frequencies. If we can create a weapon that generates those vibrations, we might be able to cripple their forces." Alex nodded, his mind racing. "We'll need time to build it. Can you hold them off until then?" Megan hesitated, glancing toward the battlefield. The sounds of explosions and shouts echoed in the distance. Finally, she squared her shoulders. "We'll do what we have to." As the two worked feverishly to construct the new weapon, the fighting grew more intense. Clara found herself face to face with a group of advancing drones, their glowing eyes locking onto her position. She activated an EMP trap just in time, disabling several of them, but others kept coming. Out of options, she grabbed a piece of broken machinery and swung it like a club, smashing the remaining drones to pieces. Elsewhere, Hayes led a counterattack against a group of Xylith soldiers attempting to breach the main dome. Armed with nothing more than a mining laser and sheer determination, he charged forward, inspiring others to follow. Together, they pushed the invaders back, sealing the breach before it could become catastrophic. Hours passed, and the humans held on by a thread. Casualties mounted, supplies dwindled, and exhaustion weighed heavily on everyone. But despite the mounting losses, there was no sign of surrender. Every colonist fought not just for themselves, but for the future of humanity in this distant corner of the galaxy. Finally, Alex and Megan completed the vibration weapon. It was crude, little more than a large emitter strapped to a portable power source, but it worked. Testing it on a damaged Xylith drone confirmed its effectiveness. The machine collapsed instantly, its armor shattered by the high-frequency waves. "We did it," Alex said, a mix of relief and pride in his voice. "Now we just need to use it." Megan smiled faintly, though her expression was tinged with sadness. She knew the cost of their survival had been high. "Let's hope this ends it." As Alex prepared to deploy the weapon, Clara approached him, her face pale but resolute. "Whatever happens next," she said softly, "just remember why we're doing this. Not because we want to destroy, but because we want to live." Alex nodded, gripping the weapon tightly, "and because we refuse to let them take that away from us." Above the battlefield, Zixer watched the humans' resistance with growing frustration. "They should have fallen by now," it growled. "What makes them so stubborn?" Unbeknownst to the Xylith, the humans were about to show them exactly what made them strong. The vibration weapon was ready, and the final stage of the battle was about to begin. The vibration weapon was ready, but getting it into position wouldn't be easy. The battlefield was chaos. Energy blasts lit up the sky, Drones swarmed like angry insects, and the ground shook with every explosion. Alex Carter and Dr. Megan Doyle worked quickly to load the device onto a small transport vehicle, knowing they had only one chance to make this work. If the Silith realized what they were doing, the plan would fail before it even began. "This thing isn't exactly portable," Alex muttered as he secured the last strap. "We'll need cover fire." Megan nodded, her face pale but determined. "I'll stay here and keep monitoring the tracker. You take it to the front lines. Clara and Hayes can help you set it up." Before Alex could respond, Clara Bennett appeared at his side, gripping a makeshift weapon tightly. "You're not going out there alone," she said firmly. "I'm coming with you." Alex hesitated, but he knew there was no time to argue. Together, they climbed into the transport vehicle and sped toward the heart of the battle. Behind them, Commander Ryan Hayes rallied the remaining defenders, shouting orders to provide covering fire. Pilots Jake Monroe and Samantha Sam Riley flew low overhead, their shuttles weaving through enemy fire to distract the Silith ships. As they approached the front lines, Alex and Clara found themselves under heavy attack. Drones buzzed around them, their screeches piercing the air. Clara activated an EMP trap mounted on the vehicle, disabling several drones in one burst. But more kept coming, forcing Alex to drag erratically to avoid being hit. "This isn't going to hold them off forever," Clara shouted over the noise. "We just need to get close enough to deploy the weapon," Alex replied, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. He spotted a narrow trench ahead, a perfect spot to set up the emitter. That's where we'll place it." They reached the trench and jumped out, dragging the heavy device behind them. Clara kept watch, firing her weapon at any drone that got too close, while Alex worked to activate the vibration emitter. His hands trembled as he adjusted the settings, sweat dripping down his face despite the cool air. Finally, the machine hummed to life, its surface glowing faintly. "Ready," Alex called out. "Now we just need to lure some of them into range." Clara nodded and fired a flare into the sky, a signal for the others to draw the enemy toward their position. Hayes and his team responded immediately, launching a coordinated assault that pushed the Silith forces closer to the trench. The aliens advanced cautiously, their armored exoskeletons glinting in the dim light. When the first wave of Silith soldiers entered the kill zone, Alex activated the vibration weapon. A high-pitched whine filled the air, growing louder and more intense with each passing second. The effect was immediate. The Silith froze, their bodies convulsing as the vibration shattered their armor and weakened their frames. One by one, they collapsed, unable to withstand the assault. Zixer watched from its command ship, horrified as its troops fell like dominoes. "What is this sorcery?" it demanded, its voice trembling with rage. "Retreat. Fall back." But the humans weren't done yet. Seeing the Silith forces falter, Hayes ordered a full counterattack. Armed with rifles, explosives, and sheer determination, the colonists surged forward, pushing the invaders back step by step. Even those who had never held a weapon before fought with everything they had, driven by the knowledge that this might be their only chance to turn the tide. In the midst of the chaos, Megan remained in the lab, monitoring the tracker and relaying critical information to the battlefield. Her heart sank when she saw movement on the screen. Reinforcements were incoming. "They're regrouping," she warned over the comms. "We don't have much time." Hayes acknowledged the message with a grim nod. "Then we finish this now," he said. Turning to his team, he shouted, "Push harder. Don't let them recover." The aftermath of the battle was a somber affair. The outpost lay in ruins, its domes cracked and walls scorched from the relentless assault. Smoke still hung in the air, mixing with the smell of burnt metal and charred earth. Survivors moved slowly, their faces etched with exhaustion and grief. The victory had come at a heavy price. Friends lost, homes destroyed, and wounds that would take time to heal. Dr. Megan Doyle stood among the wreckage, her hands trembling as she checked on the injured. She had done everything she could to patch up those who were hurt, but some wounds were beyond her skill to mend. As she wrapped a bandage around a young farmer's arm, her mind replayed the moments when she had stayed behind in the lab, monitoring the tracker while others risked their lives. Guilt weighed heavily on her shoulders. "I should have been out there," she muttered to herself, though no one heard her over the chaos. Nearby, Alex Carter sat on a chunk of rubble, staring blankly at the ground. The vibration weapon had worked. It had saved them, but he couldn't shake the image of Dr. Doyle collapsing under enemy fire just moments after helping him adjust the device. Though she had survived, the sight of her falling had haunted him ever since. Clara Bennett approached him quietly, sitting down beside him without saying a word. For a long moment, they simply sat together, finding comfort in the silence. Commander Ryan Hayes walked through the camp, speaking softly to each survivor. He knew morale was low, but he also knew they couldn't afford to lose hope. "We're still here," he said repeatedly, his voice firm yet gentle. "And as long as we're breathing, we'll keep fighting." As night fell, the humans gathered around makeshift fires, sharing what little food and water they had left. Stories of bravery and sacrifice passed from person to person, reminding everyone of the strength they had shown. Jake Monroe and Samantha Sam Riley recounted their dogfights in space, their voices filled with pride despite the losses they had suffered. Even the children chimed in, describing how they had helped carry supplies or tend to the wounded. But not all stories ended well. One by one, names were spoken aloud for those who hadn't made it. When Megan's name came up, she stepped forward, her voice barely above a whisper. "We did everything we could," she said, tears streaming down her face. "Let's honor them by surviving, by winning." Her words struck a chord, and the group nodded in agreement. They knew the fight wasn't over, not yet. Zixer and the Tsilith fleet still loomed somewhere in the distance, regrouping and planning their next move. The humans had won a battle, but the war was far from finished. The next morning, Hayes called a meeting to discuss their next steps. The survivors huddled together in what remained of the main dome, their faces weary but resolute. "We've proven we can hold our own," Hayes began, "but we need to be ready for whatever comes next. That means fortifying our position, repairing what we can, and preparing new defenses." Alex raised his hand hesitantly. "What about the vibration weapon? Can we build more?" Hayes shook his head. "It drained too much power. We'd need weeks to make another, and we don't have that kind of time. But we can use what we learned from it to improve our other weapons." Clara added, "And we can set traps using the same principle. If we focus on smaller-scale devices, we might be able to slow them down again." Everyone pitched in, working tirelessly to rebuild and prepare. Farmers turned their tools into defensive barriers, engineers modified damaged equipment into usable weapons, and pilots practiced evasive maneuvers in case the Tsilith returned. Despite their losses, the colony buzzed with activity, a testament to their determination to survive. As the days passed, tensions eased slightly, replaced by a renewed sense of purpose. The humans had faced death and destruction, but they had also discovered something deeper within themselves, a resilience that refused to yield. They weren't just fighting for survival, they were fighting for the future, for the chance to build something greater than themselves. High above, aboard the Tsilith flagship, Zixer stared at the planet below, its mandibles clicking furiously. "These humans, they are unlike any foe we have encountered," it admitted reluctantly. Its subordinates shifted nervously, unsure of what to say. Zixer's eyes narrowed. "Prepare for a final assault. This time, we leave nothing standing." Unbeknownst to the Tsilith, the humans were ready. They had faced impossible odds before and emerged stronger. And though fear lingered in their hearts, so did hope, a quiet, unyielding belief that they could overcome anything. The final assault came without warning. One moment, the outpost was quiet, its defenders resting after days of relentless preparation. The next, the sky lit up with the fiery glow of descending Tsilith ships. This time, there were more of them, Dozens of massive vessels blotting out the stars, their weapons glowing ominously as they prepared to unleash destruction. Commander Ryan Hayes wasted no time. "To your positions," he shouted, his voice cutting through the panic that threatened to take hold. The colonists sprang into action, grabbing weapons and rushing to their assigned posts. Alex Carter and Clara Bennett joined a group near the main gate, where the vibration traps had been set up. Jake Monroe and Samantha Sam Riley raced to their shuttles, engines roaring as they prepared to face the enemy in space. The first wave of Silith forces landed hard, their armored soldiers marching forward with precision. But the humans were ready. As the aliens stepped into the kill zones, the traps activated, sending high-frequency vibrations rippling through the air. The Silith froze, their exoskeletons cracking under the strain. Some collapsed instantly, while others staggered, giving the humans a brief advantage. "Keep pushing," Hayes yelled, firing his modified energy rifle at the advancing troops. Around him, colonists worked together, using every weapon and tactic they had developed. Farmers hurled explosives made from mining materials, engineers triggered hidden barriers, and even children threw rocks to distract the enemy. Above the battlefield, Jake and Sam fought valiantly against the Silith fleet. Their shuttles darted between the larger ships, firing bursts of energy at weak points and drawing fire away from the ground forces. Every hit mattered. Every second bought the colony more time to hold its ground. But the Silith weren't about to give up. Reinforcements poured in, overwhelming the humans' defenses. Explosions rocked the outpost, sending debris flying in all directions. Clara ducked behind a barricade as a blast narrowly missed her. Her hands trembled, but she forced herself to stand back up, firing her weapon with steady determination. Alex spotted a group of Silith soldiers attempting to breach the main dome. He grabbed a makeshift grenade and hurled it toward them, the explosion knocking several of the aliens off their feet. "We can't let them inside," he shouted to Clara, who nodded grimly. As the battle raged on, sacrifices were made. Dr. Megan Doyle stayed behind in the lab, ensuring the tracker device continued to feed critical information to the fighters. When a group of Silith drones broke through the outer defenses, she stood her ground, activating an EMP trap that disabled the machines, but not before taking a direct hit. Her last act was to send one final message to the battlefield: "You're stronger than you think." In space, Jake Monroe realized the only way to stop the Silith flagship was to get close enough to plant charges deep within its core. "I'm going in," he said over the comms, his voice calm despite the danger. Sam tried to protest, but Jake cut her off. "It's the only way. Cover me." With Sam's help distracting the enemy ships, Jake flew his shuttle straight at the flagship, dodging fire until he reached the hull. He jumped out, planting the explosives with shaking hands before racing back to his shuttle. The charges detonated just as he escaped, crippling the massive vessel and sending shockwaves through the fleet. On the ground, Clara found herself face to face with Zixer, the Silith ambassador. Its glowing eyes locked onto hers, and for a moment, fear paralyzed her. Then she remembered why she was fighting: for her friends, for humanity, for the future. She raised her weapon and fired, striking the alien leader squarely in its chest. Zixer stumbled back, its body convulsing before collapsing to the ground. The remaining Silith forces began to retreat, their morale shattered. Hayes watched them go, his chest heaving with exhaustion. "We did it," he whispered, though his voice carried little joy. Too many had been lost. Clara sank to her knees, tears streaming down her face. Alex knelt beside her, placing a hand on her shoulder. "We held on," he said softly. "That's what matters." High above, the crippled Silith fleet fled into the void, leaving the battered but victorious humans behind. Zixer's final words echoed in the minds of its subordinates. "These humans, they are unlike anything we have ever faced." And for the first time, the mighty Silith Empire understood what it meant to be truly strong. The Silith fleet disappeared into the vast emptiness of space, leaving behind a trail of wreckage and silence. The humans stood amidst the ruins of their outpost, too exhausted to celebrate, but too proud to despair. They had won. Against all odds, they had survived. The air was thick with smoke and the scent of burnt metal, but it carried something else: hope. Commander Ryan Hayes walked slowly through the remains of the colony, his boots crunching on broken glass and debris. His face was grim, but there was a flicker of pride in his eyes as he looked at the survivors. Each person had played a part in the victory, no matter how small. Farmers who had never held a weapon before had fought alongside engineers and pilots, united by a shared determination to protect their home. Alex Carter sat on a piece of rubble, staring at the horizon. His hands were scratched and blistered, and his body ached from days of non-stop effort. But his mind was clear. "We did it," he said quietly to Clara Bennett, who sat beside him. "We actually did it." Clara nodded, her voice barely above a whisper. "Yeah, we did. But at what cost?" She glanced around at the damaged domes, the shattered equipment, and the makeshift graves scattered across the landscape. So many lives had been lost, so many dreams cut short. Yet even in her grief, she felt a strange sense of peace. They had proven something, not just to the Seleth, but to themselves. Humanity wasn't defined by its strength or technology. It was defined by its resilience, its ability to adapt and endure. Dr. Megan Doyle's sacrifice weighed heavily on everyone's minds. Her final message, "You're stronger than you think," echoed in their thoughts. Clara remembered how Megan had stayed behind, ensuring the tracker kept working until the very end. "She believed in us," Clara said softly. Even when things seemed hopeless, she believed. Hayes gathered the survivors for one last meeting. Standing in front of them, his voice steady despite his fatigue, he spoke from the heart. "Today, we showed the universe what it means to be human. We're not the biggest, the strongest, or the fastest. But we don't give up. No matter how hard things get, we find a way to keep going. That's our strength." He paused, looking each person in the eye. "We've lost a lot: homes, friends, family. But we still have each other. And as long as we stand together, we can rebuild. We can make this place better than it was before." The survivors nodded, their faces weary but determined. They knew the road ahead wouldn't be easy. Supplies were low, and much of the outpost would need to be rebuilt from scratch. But they also knew they had faced worse, and survived. Over the next few days, the colony sprang back to life. Engineers worked tirelessly to repair the damaged domes, while farmers began planting new crops in the nutrient-rich soil. Pilots like Jake Monroe and Samantha Sam Riley patrolled the skies, ensuring that Silith didn't return. Even the children pitched in, helping carry supplies and tend to the wounded. Alex and Clara spent hours in the lab, studying the alien tech they had salvaged. Though battered and worn, the pieces still held secrets that could help humanity thrive in this unforgiving galaxy. "We've got a lot to learn," Alex said, holding up a glowing fragment. "But if we can figure this out, we'll be ready for whatever comes next." Clara smiled faintly. "And we'll do it together." As the sun rose over the barren landscape, painting the sky in hues of orange and gold, the humans looked toward the stars. They knew the universe was vast and full of dangers, but they also knew they weren't alone. They had each other, and that made all the difference. In the distance, the wreckage of the Silith flagship served as a reminder of what they had overcome. Somewhere deep within the galaxy, Zixer and its kind would remember the stubborn, resourceful creatures who refused to yield. Humanity had proven itself strong, not because of its weapons or technology, but because of its heart. And as the colonists began to rebuild, one thought lingered in their minds. Humans are kin strong **.